Hi, I'm Akis, a developer here at FlyRank, and today I'm walking through Task API, a small express server that manages a to-do list. It started as a full working CRUD API backed by an in-memory JavaScript array, and I migrated it step by step to SQLite, real SQL, real persistence, without changing the API contract client C. The commit history tells the story in 7 deliberate stages, from init CRUD API through stage 6, implement extras. By the end, every endpoint reads and writes through SQL, data survives, server starts, and the API is documented with OpenAPI and Swagger UI. Key point, same REST surface, the storage layer is what evolved. The stack is intentionally small. Uh, Express 5 for HTTP routing, better SQLite 3, asynchronous SQLite driver, so handles state symbol and with no async await for queries, and Swagger UI Express plus OpenAPI JSON file here for interactive docs add slash docs. Run npm install and then run npm start, and the server listens support 3000. The database file tasks.db is created automatically on first run and is actually git ignored, so its environment keeps its own data. The first real commit init CRUD API shipped the complete API. It shipped all the endpoints like the get slash tasks and the get slash task slash ID for reading, the post slash tasks uh, for creating, and then put slash task slash ID for updating, and delete slash task slash ID to delete. There are some extra routes like get slash stats and get slash reset. Stats and reset. Yeah, with query filters from done and search. Now, all of that lived in a plain array named seed tasks. It worked, but restart the server and everything resets. That limitation is exactly why the next phase exists, the persistence. You can try that by creating a task, restarting the server, and see that this task is basically gone. Stage 0 introduced a better SQLite 3. Opened a new task.db file and created a task table with the following columns: ID, which is an integer and a primary key, the title, which is a text and is required, and the done, which is basically stored as 0 or 1 because SQLite has no native Boolean types. Now, on startup, if the table is empty, 3 seed tasks are inserted inside a transaction by default. So either all rows land or none do. Important patterns here are the prepare, which at this stage, the in-memory array was still the source of truth for HTTP, so the database was scaffolding for the migration ahead. And then I migrated one operation at a time, commit by commit. The endpoint get tasks switched from array filtering to an SQL query like this one. The row to task helper converts SQLite's 0 and 1 values back into JSON booleans. Now on stage 2, the app.post function runs an insert, then fetches a new row using the last insert row ID. Note that validation stayed the same and empty titles return 400. Now on stage 3, uh, put loads the existing row first for 404 handling and partial updates, and then runs the update. Delete checks result.changes. If 0 rows were affected, the task didn't exist. The API responses and status codes didn't change, only the implementation behind them did. That's a useful lesson. You can swap storage without breaking clients if you keep the contract stable. Like a demo tip right now, you can walk through create, update, delete in Swagger UI or with CURL. You can navigate to Swagger UI typing the slash docs endpoint, and here you can test it out and try it out using these buttons. Stage 4 and 5 focus on documentation rather than new endpoints. The README explains why we use SQLite. There's no separate database server to install. The data persists across restarts. There's a synchronous API that keeps Express handlers straightforward. And we can have enough SQL practice with select, insert, update, and delete without Postgres and MySQL overhead. I also documented every endpoint with request and response examples and added Swagger UI as last docs generated from OpenAPI.json. And note that good APIs aren't just working code, they're APIs someone else can discover and use without reading your source. Stage 6 was the capstone. It removed the in-memory array entirely and polished the extras. I've added the created dot and update dot columns, which work as timestamps. And create that is if set on insert and updated that on changes on every successful put. I also handle existing tasks.db files with a pragma table info check and other table migration. Filters were also moved into SQL instead of using JavaScript.filter function. The get slash tasks question mark done equals true and question mark search equals, let's say, for example, the word milk. Append where clauses with parameterized queries. Now the database does the work. We don't load every row into memory to search. The get stats endpoint counts and calculates in SQL using the count function and conditional aggregates instead of looping in JavaScript. The post slash reset clears the table and resets the 3 example tasks inside the transaction, useful for demos and testing. Something you can do as a demo is to hit the slash stats endpoint and filter using the question mark done or search parameters. Note that the route order matters too. For example, the slash stats endpoint and the slash reset endpoints are registered before the slash task slash ID. So stats isn't mistaken for an ID. The error handling is also consistent. We have 400 for bad input, 404 for missing tasks, 201 when we successfully create something, and 204 on delete with nobody. So three takeaways from this project is that incremental migration works. I didn't rewrite everything at once. Database was first, then read, then write, and then polish. SQL patterns repeat, prepare, bind parameters, run, check changes, or last insert row ID. Once you know all this, like every endpoint looks familiar. And number three is that persistent changes the product. The API felt the same, but restarting the server no longer wipes user data. That's the difference between a demo and something you can actually use. The full history is in 8 commits from an in-memory prototype to documented SQLite-backed task API. Thank you for watching and please let us know if you have any questions.